Just Jerry Jarrett, when we did the great debate, we told the story for the first time 10 or 12 years ago. And so Jared's hearing all these horrible things that Kenny Bolin has done and just this horrible thing. And he kicked his mother out of his house for higher rent. And then it gets to the meat scam story that Jimmy's telling. He says, Kenny, is this correct? You were involved in a meat scam? That was the one that he was appalled by. Everything else was fine. Kicking your mom out, scamming people out of this, scamming people out of that. But the meat opportunity was just more than he can handle.
The meat opportunity. That should be a t-shirt if it's not right.
It is. Did you already put it in the store, JJ?
It's called Arby's. Keen has the meat or something.
Yeah. Mark Cuban liked the shirt that said Arby's, the king. What did you call it? Bolin's. He made the Arby's.
Bolin's, yeah, there you go.
And the king has the meat. And
something like that.
And Mark Cuban also said, so it's true that Kenny Bolin has been peddling his meat on the street for the better part of 20 years. So that was the other quote from Mark Cuban.
Let me look at it.
So I teach my mom how to do it. She goes into the first Kroger. We get, so we divide up the meat. We're ready to make $540 that day. She goes into the first Kroger, gets her refund. She's go, God, this is just too easy. She said, can I do this in Louisville? I said, well, all right, you do it, but there's only a few stores, but I'll show you where. So we go to the next store to cap out, to get the $540 in exchange for the $120 we spent. Mom comes out crying. She has no meat and no money.
Oh,
I pull up to the thing there. To pick her up. I said, why are you crying? Oh my God, Kenny, get out of here. Please, God, get out of here. I said, what's the matter? Oh my God, they recognized me. The person in this store was just at the store I was at. He was one of the other managers and he was over here dropping off something they needed. And he recognized me. He says, didn't you just return? She goes into the store. I said, oh my God. I said, well, Mom, that's terrible. I said, you go in there and demand your money. No, get me out of here. I said, get in the car. So we drove home. I said, well, there went that territory. So Nashville was killed in a day. And we did keep it going in a few other cities for a while. But Alex, the meat guy, apparently went out of business. They descended the double your money back meat policy, and that killed the whole territory. And there went that if you wanted to make $2,000 a day, just went down the tubes. Now, in the mortgage business in 88, could you make $2,000 in a day?
I don't know. I was 7. So.
You mean to tell me you weren't hustling mortgages or meat when you were 7 years old?
No, I was selling baseball, basketball, and football cards, but I was not yet hustling.
Well, I didn't start selling them till I got into my late 20s. But I collect. Oh, there it is. He brought it up on his phone. That was the logo that he came up. Bolin's has the meat. I don't know how many of those shirts we sold. I don't even have one yet. I need to get one.
0.
So all right. Well, anybody that's ever met Jimmy Cornette has heard of the meat opportunity. So I should have known that Conrad knew that. Who is the most impressive person that you've ever met in professional wrestling that you were just blown away by not only how personable they were, but how did this draw you into their aura? Other than me.
I mean, it's pretty surreal to meet Vince McMahon. I mean, he has a presence.
He does.
People talk about that, and I don't think it can be overstated. Like, when you.
What year did you meet him?
I first met him in 2014 or 15.
Okay.
And then I got to actually spend a little time with him in 2019.
I never got to have dinner with Vince, but technically my son did. My son nearly got kicked out of Freedom Hall because he was out watching the guys prepare for their matches, which they didn't really like people being able to do. So they tried to throw him out, but Jerry Lawler and Rico recognized, or obviously Rico did, but Jerry Lawler, he says, I know who that kid is. I'll take care of it. So Lawler and Rico walked Chris to the back, and we're in catering. So it's me and Kane and D'Lo Brown and Cornette eating at one table. Off to the left of us, with 20 feet, if that far, was Vince McMahon and Stephanie sitting at their own table. So they bring Chris back, and they set Chris at the table. They explained what was going on and why he couldn't be out there. And I said, is it okay for him to be back there? And Jimmy said, yeah, just sit down, just grab a bite to eat with us, and we'll get out of here. Vince McMahon, Mr. Bolin, is that your son? I said, yes, that's my son, Chris. Nice to meet you. And Chris says, I want to go over and eat with them. He's young. He's only like 9, however old he was in 2000. Now, he might have been about 11. And he says, I want to eat with them. I said, you're not going to go over there. He says, you want to come over and eat with Vince McMahon? Come on over here, little guy. So Chris gets up with a big smile on his face, goes over and sits down with Vince and Stephanie. There's me, D'Lo, Kane, and Jimmy sitting there like, what the hell just happened? So Chris goes over there, eats with them, hangs out with them for 20 or 30 minutes. We don't really say a word. It's just Chris and them, and we're over there like, what the fuck just happened? And then when it was over, Tony Gurria got in my shit. He comes over, he says, who the hell do you think you are? I said, Kenny Bolin. I'm just being a smart ass. Kenny Bolin, nice to meet you. And I'm there to manage Rico and Cena against Brock and Shelton that night. And we're the last match before the Raw starts. And so I'm pretty amped up anyway and nervous as shit. First time I've ever performed in front of 20,000 people. So he says, do you realize that my kids have never met Vince McMahon? I said, as long as you've been here, they've never met me. I said, I'd be happy to introduce you to him. So I'm being a smart ass with him, thinking maybe he's trying to have some fun, but he was serious. He was pissed. And it was actually Pat Patterson that come over and saved the day. He came over, come on, Kenny's a friend of mine. Kenny, did you get enough to eat at catering? I said, well, I got to have a little bit. I was just in awe that my son was eating with Vince McMahon. Let me get you a pizza. So he goes over and gets me and Molly Holly and Ivory a Papa John's pizza. And he gets it, brings it to us, and we sit over there and nibble on the pizza before we do the show.